you imagine what your life would be like if you had a remote control that could completely shut off the noise around you? Today, that's a reality. And no, the answer doesn't lie in an expensive hearing aid, a white noise therapy that only masks the symptoms, or invasive drugs full of side effects. One of the most astonishing medical discoveries in recent years, led by an industry renegade, has revealed the presence of a powerful natural anti-inflammatory hidden in an ancient Mediterranean ingredient, a compound that ENTs and neurologists around the world are already calling the definitive solution for tinnitus. Over 14,000 Americans have already silenced the constant ringing. And the most impressive part, it was all done at home, 100% naturally. Many are reporting their transformations on social media.
I started the Mediterranean protocol just 1 week ago, and it already feels like my mind has been unfogged. The ringing that tormented me 24/7 is completely gone.
It's unbelievable how a simple ingredient that was in my kitchen managed to silence the static in my ears for good.
According to more than 200 recent studies, the secret lies in a natural compound found in this ingredient called oleuropein. Scientists state that this substance doesn't just reduce the symptoms, it attacks the true cause of tinnitus, which, contrary to what many believed, has nothing to do with your ear. The real root of the problem is the brain. In fact, this new discovery indicates that the main culprit behind the phantom noise is an inflammation of the trigeminal nerve caused by the accumulation of an invisible toxin hiding inside our own homes, in tap water, in foods loaded with pesticides and agrochemicals, and in polluted air. What's astounding in the reports from those who suffered from tinnitus and managed to cure the condition is that they did it at home with an ingredient that costs just pennies and without the help of any other type of treatment. Recent studies conducted by MIT indicate that this new method could completely eradicate the disease in the United States within 2 years. This news brings hope to more than 25 million Americans who currently suffer from this previously incurable disease. That's because the tests have demonstrated effectiveness in every single patient who underwent the at-home treatment. They not only got rid of the incessant ringing that tormented their ears, but they also began to experience something they thought they had lost forever: entire nights of deep sleep without waking up in the middle of the night. They recovered the peace and silence that tinnitus had stolen, felt their minds become clear again, without the fog that disrupted even the simplest conversations, and rediscovered the pleasure of hearing every detail of life. The laughter of their grandchildren, the singing of birds, and even their favorite songs. So, if you live with tinnitus and have already tried everything, expensive medications, uncomfortable hearing aids, white noise therapies, but the ringing is still there day and night, tormenting your life and stealing your peace, then stay with us for the next few minutes. Our team took us to the man responsible for this medical revolution, Dr. Michael Harrington, a neurologist specializing in otolaryngology in the field of auditory canal disorders. He spent over 30 years treating patients with hearing loss and tinnitus, but it was only when the enemy appeared in his own home that he vowed to find the solution that has now cured thousands of Americans. In his personal battle to save his wife, he conducted studies in partnership with more than 5 universities and 4 hospitals, which led him to discover the Mediterranean protocol with olive oil. In the next 60 seconds, the doctor will reveal why boiling tap water might be the worst thing you're doing for your brain, what never to do when tinnitus strikes. Most doctors recommend this, but science proves it can accelerate hearing loss. The 30-second Mediterranean protocol that switches off your brain's faulty fire alarm, silencing the ringing almost instantly.
Before we begin, I want to say that this is truly a milestone in modern medicine, and I am so happy to be a part of it. Today, a new hope is born. In fact, a new certainty. Between patients and their families, millions of people will be impacted by what will be shown now, and they can start using this approach today and feel visible improvements in their hearing, cognition, and memory within weeks. I really need you to pay close attention to what I'm about to share in this video because, honestly, I don't know how long this presentation will stay online. Ever since I started making this information public, I've been receiving threats telling me to keep quiet. I've spent over 30 years working on cutting-edge neurological research with a focus on auditory canal disorders. I was a professor at Harvard Medical School and led Harvard's otolaryngology ear and brain surgery program. I was a chief member of the American Tinnitus Association, but after what happened to me and the silence from my colleagues, I decided to leave it all behind to fight against the industry's grip. I was the typical model doctor. I always did everything by the book and never challenged orders from above. For years, I've researched the connections between the brain and the facial muscles responsible for speech and hearing. To me, the connection between ringing in the ears and the neurological damage associated with it was always obvious. But my colleagues always asked me not to dig too deep. They'd say things like,
Your thesis is messing with the wrong people's pockets. Drop it and live your life.
Michael, Big Pharma is a licensed cartel. Don't mess with them.
I wasn't afraid of losing my job or my reputation. After all, I've always valued truth above all else. What I was afraid of was what they could do to my family, to my wife and children. I believe that's why God placed a challenge before me. My wife, the love of my life, began to complain about a small ringing she felt in her head before sleep. It all started subtly, almost harmlessly. First, she complained of static in her head that prevented her from concentrating on the piano. Then, that static evolved into a relentless noise that stole her nights of sleep and dragged her into a deep depression. In the cruelest stage of the disease, she began to distance herself from our children. Their joy turned into a hellish noise for her. What hurt me the most was seeing the guilt in her eyes for no longer being able to stand the sound of their games, as if a mother's love was being defeated by her own condition. Maybe you think a little ringing is normal with age, but that's a dangerous lie you've been told. That high-pitched ringing that only you can hear and that never turns off. The exhaustion from trying to follow a simple conversation. The constant feeling that your brain is short-circuiting. These are not signs of aging, and certainly not genetics. In fact, they are warning signs that your brain is slowly starting to shut down. I've lost count of the number of patients who reported suffering from tinnitus and decided to ignore the condition, thinking it was harmless. You know what they all have in common? Little by little, the harmless ringing gave way to the development of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. A clinical study conducted by the University of Oxford from 2013 to 2023 followed 500 patients with chronic tinnitus. The results were alarming. 84% of patients who did not treat the condition developed some form of significant cognitive decline, from memory loss to a dementia diagnosis. This shows that tinnitus is not a symptom, but a real and documented risk factor for serious brain diseases. So, the real question isn't how to stop the noise in my ear, but rather how to restore my brain before it's too late. And that's why I'm here. My only goal is to show you what really worked for us and for over 14,000 other Americans. A simple recipe based on Mediterranean olive oil that saved my wife when everything else failed. That's because this homemade protocol acts on the root of the problem. Unlike medications full of side effects like amitriptyline, Xanax, and Zoloft, which, according to their own labels, carry the risk of cerebral hemorrhage and stroke. In April 2024, a study from the American Tinnitus Association itself proved that 99% of attempts to create a medication for tinnitus fail in clinical trials. This is why it's so important to understand that these supposed solutions are actually just chains that keep you trapped in a cycle of false hope and disappointment. They don't attack the root of the problem because the problem isn't in the ear, it's in the brain. Let's think about it together. If tinnitus were really a problem in your ear canal, shouldn't you be able to stop it simply by covering your ears with your hands? Try it right now. The sound is still there, inside your head, isn't it? That is the physical and instantaneous proof that the source of the noise isn't external. It's an internal activity, an echo that your own brain is producing. Wouldn't you agree that treating the ear in this case is like trying to change a light bulb when the electrical wiring is fried? And that's why what I'm about to show you demands your full attention. Because in the next few minutes, you won't just discover how a simple ritual with olive oil inspired by the secrets of the Mediterranean can finally turn off that high-pitched scream inside your brain. You will understand how it restores the vitality of your neurons, which have been silently damaged day after day by this condition that so many doctors insist on ignoring. This isn't about masking the sound. It's not another useless supplement or an expensive device. This is a natural solution that attacks the root cause of the problem, bringing back silence and mental clarity. And most importantly, it frees you from this sonic prison so you can finally get your life back and feel like yourself again. Well, I've never been one to share my personal life. But in this case, I feel it's my duty to tell my wife's story, because it's not just about us, but about something that can help and even save the lives of thousands of people. Over time, I realized that my wife's tinnitus wasn't just stealing her sleep or making her irritable. She slowly began to have memory lapses in simple, everyday moments. She'd forget what she was saying mid-conversation. She'd walk into a room and suddenly not remember what she went there to do. Sometimes she'd stop in the middle of a sentence and look at me with lost eyes, as if her own mind had gone blank. She was always a radiant woman, waking up every day with a smile and going straight to her piano to compose music and warm my heart with the soundtrack of our lives. But slowly, The smile and the sparkle in her eyes that made me fall in love in our youth turned into an expression of exhaustion, irritation, and sadness. Until recently, no one imagined that tinnitus had such a direct link to the brain. But in February 2024, a study led by a German university in partnership with MIT researchers proved that the ear and cognitive functions are intimately connected by a key nerve called the trigeminal nerve. The trigeminal nerve is responsible for sending electrical signals between the ear and the brain. It's what translates the various vibrations the ear picks up every day into recognizable sounds. But the problem is, there's an invisible enemy acting sneakily against your nervous system, and it's called cadmium chloride. Cadmium is a poison of modern life, a heavy metal that infiltrates your body through tap water, processed foods, and even the polluted air you breathe. Once inside your system, this powerful neurotoxin begins a silent march to the brain, where it starts destroying your neurons, one by one. As cadmium accumulates, it causes an overproduction of inflammatory molecules in the brain. Under normal conditions, these molecules serve as a defense, but in excess, they stop protecting and start attacking the nerve connections themselves, causing a massive short circuit in your auditory signals. That's where the problem begins. When the trigeminal nerve becomes inflamed, it becomes hypersensitive. This means that common, everyday sounds like a fan spinning, soft music, or even the hum of the refrigerator are perceived in a distorted and exaggerated way. The brain, unable to correctly interpret these stimuli, collapses. Instead of processing only real sounds, it starts generating confused and excessive electrical signals that turn into the buzzing, whistling, and ringing that simply don't exist. But what's most worrying is that once this mechanism is activated, it only gets worse over time. If ignored, this inflammation doesn't stay confined to the ear. It spreads like wildfire through the neural network, corroding the nerve connections that sustain memory and identity. At first, you get irritated by the ringing, lose your ability to concentrate, and start dealing with insomnia and brain fog. But before you know it, the toxin affects your memory. Entire memories disappear. Important dates, familiar faces, moments that defined your life, until your very identity begins to dissolve. It is in this void that cruel diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's take hold. They start by taking away your autonomy. The day your family forbids you from driving or cooking, then they take your memories. And finally, they steal the very essence of who you are. The scariest part is that almost no one talks about this. This toxic metal is everywhere, and without realizing it, millions of people are poisoning themselves every day, accumulating an invisible load that sabotages the nervous system. There's a reason our grandparents didn't know the word Alzheimer's. Until the 1960s, severe cognitive decline and disabling tinnitus were not a reality for most of the population. Their brains were protected. What changed? The historical turning point is 1983. That's when our exposure to environmental neurotoxins through agrochemicals and pesticides reached a critical level. The correlation is undeniable. From the moment these poisons entered our water and food, cases of neurodegenerative diseases skyrocketed. We are not witnessing a failure of aging, but a continuous chemical assault on our brain health that began decades ago. That's why it doesn't matter how hard you try to live well. You can exercise, eat healthy, sleep 8 hours a night. If your brain is under constant attack, the ringing will only get worse. It will consume your memory, your mental clarity, and in the end, only a shadow of who you once were will remain. Now you might be asking yourself, but why don't traditional treatments solve this? The answer is simple. They miss the target. Trying to treat tinnitus through the ear is like painting the walls of a termite-infested house. The surface appearance might change, but the structure continues to rot from the inside. Medications, hearing aids, and sound therapies only mask the symptoms. None of them attack the true cause, cadmium poisoning. And I only discovered this when it was almost too late, when my wife's ringing was already uncontrollable and her memory was beginning to fade. Well, I confess, as a doctor, I tried to fool myself. I told myself it wasn't that serious, that it would pass soon. But the truth hit me like a runaway train that Sunday afternoon at my parents' house. While my parents were preparing lunch, my wife and I were sitting on the porch in a moment of silence, observing the landscape. My mother joined us and came to speak with my wife. She approached with her usual sweetness and asked my wife to play a song, as she did at every family gathering. But on that day, everything changed. She gave a tired smile, looked at my mother, leaned in slowly, and said, with a sincerity that tore me apart inside,
"Mom, I'm so sorry. I see your mouth moving, but all I can hear is this damned ringing. I can't hear you."
But the final blow came from the most innocent hands. Our little Benjamin, wanting to help, repeated what his grandmother said in a louder voice. Her reaction was one of complete agony. She immediately covered her ears and contorted from the ringing. I will never forget that moment. She stared blankly at Benjamin and asked me,
Who is this child and why is he yelling at me?
In that instant, the floor just disappeared from under me. It was as if time stood still. My wife didn't recognize her own son. What I had feared most was becoming a reality. The ringing, that damned sound she heard day and night, was now destroying not only her sanity, but also her memories. It was one of the most shocking moments of my life. Because right there in that empty exchange of glances, I realized that the ringing was taking my wife away from me, one piece at a time. For a moment, I froze. That was my wife. I couldn't let her disappear. In that instant, I was no longer just a doctor. I was a husband, losing the love of his life in the blink of an eye. That night, after she finally went to bed, I stayed in the living room, in the silence that didn't exist for her, completely overcome by this feeling of powerlessness. Years of study, access to the best doctors in the world, and cutting-edge equipment, and none of it mattered. I felt guilty for neglecting her condition. What good was my entire career if in my own home I was facing empty-handed the very enemy I had fought against my whole life? Something changed inside me in that moment. As I fought through the pain, I made a promise. I would use every resource, every contact, all my energy to find a way to bring peace and silence back to my wife, no matter the cost. It felt like an impossible battle. But the next morning, instead of going to the hospital, I went to my office and began the most exhaustive investigation of my career. I used everything available to me. My labs at Harvard, my contacts at universities in Germany and Tokyo, cutting-edge research from neurologist and ENT colleagues in the field. We ran tests, changed her diet, added all the recommended supplements, used all the latest generation sound devices, tried meditations, tinnitus retraining therapy, even light, sound, and frequency therapies. We also tried things like omega-3, nootropics, and chemical drugs in the hope they might help with the mental clarity the ringing was stealing. But none of it worked. At that point, I had two clear goals. First, I had to eliminate the toxin that was inflaming the trigeminal nerve. And second, I needed to find a way to restore the nerve connections that had been destroyed in her central nervous system so her brain could finally recover. I started with the first step. Technically speaking, I needed a natural chelator, something that could bind to cadmium chloride and remove it from my wife's brain, regulating the production of inflammatory molecules and reducing inflammation in the trigeminal nerve without dangerous side effects. There are drugs for metal detoxification, but they are incredibly aggressive and most can't even cross the blood-brain barrier. I needed something gentle, natural, and powerful. I couldn't risk making my wife's condition worse. Months passed in my investigation, and I was just going in circles, hitting one wall after another in conventional medicine. I was part of that industry myself, and I know how they operate. They look for solutions that keep you as a customer, because a cured patient is a patient free from monthly fees. That's why I decided to abandon my search through conventional means. Since I already knew the root of the tinnitus problem was in the brain, I needed to find populations with extremely low rates of neurological damage and find a link between their practices and brain health, especially regarding the trigeminal nerve. I began a deep investigation into the country's most advanced databases on the blue zones, remote places in the world where people live past 100 with inexplicable health and vitality. In these communities, it felt as if time simply stood still. Hearing loss and other neurological diseases were practically non-existent. My research led me to an isolated village in Greece. As I already suspected, the elders of that region maintained their hearing and their memories until the final stages of life, enjoying impeccable brain health. I started talking to the locals, asking if anyone had ever suffered from that invisible torment. The constant ringing, the phantom noises with no external source, the deafening sound of a fire alarm trapped inside the head. The answer was always the same. In that culture, tinnitus was virtually non-existent. For them, the word buzzing only made sense when they talked about bees or other insects. It all started to make sense when I began to notice their dietary habits. Every day, I saw villagers harvesting green and silver leaves from wild olive trees, drying them in the sun, and preparing a bitter, dark tea which they drank religiously every morning. They called it the tea of the leaf of life. Local tradition said it cleansed the blood and calmed the head. I took a sample for analysis at the Harvard labs in the Otolaryngology Ear and Brain Surgery Research Center, and the results were shocking. The wild olive leaf had an extremely high concentration of oleuropein, a natural chelating compound capable of binding to cadmium in the brain and removing it at the root. I had the first piece of the puzzle, the method to cleanse the trigeminal nerve of toxins and switch off the inflammation that fed the tinnitus. But I already knew this was only half the battle. I started giving my wife a carefully measured dose of the olive leaf extract every morning, mixed in warm water. And then I waited, watching her closely, my heart filled with hope for any sign of improvement. After a few days, I noticed she seemed a bit calmer. The air compressor in her ear seemed less intense. It wasn't dramatic, but it was something. Still, although the olive leaf was helping to contain the inflammation, the damage already done to the neural connection still needed to be repaired. The tinnitus decreased drastically. She became less stressed, was able to sleep through the night, and started watching television at a low volume again. However, the forgetfulness and brain fog continued because she had been exposed to tinnitus for so long. The toxins had advanced in her brain and caused damage to her neural connections. I needed something that would help the brain rebuild those burned bridges. Controlling the inflammation with that leaf was like clearing the overgrown weeds from an abandoned garden. You can finally see the soil. It's a relief, progress. But the soil is still dry, nutrient depleted, unable to sustain life. For flowers to bloom again, you need to fertilize, water, and rebuild the soil's health. That's exactly what was missing, a neuroregenerative compound that works like a top-tier fertilizer for your auditory synapses, rebuilding the wiring that the tinnitus had damaged. The most obvious place I could think to find some direction was the World Memory Championship. I decided to go, not as a spectator, but as a researcher, seeking to understand the limits of human capability. And it was the right place to look for a solution. I was impressed by what I saw. But it was during the binary number challenge that something really caught my attention. Among all the young competitors, there was an elderly man who must have been in his late 70s, competing side by side with them. And despite his age, his mind was clearly sharper than many there. In the end, he took home the grand prize. I had to talk to him. His name was Vishva Rajakumar, a gentleman from India. I waited for the right moment and approached him. "Mr. Vishva," I asked, "what is your secret? Is there a diet, a technique you use to keep your memory so sharp?" He looked me in the eyes and answered with a calm smile.
"My friend, I have trained my mind since I was young. But I must admit, I had help from my grandmother. Since I was a boy, she gave me a paste every morning made from the crushed leaves of the Ganesha plant. She used to say it would feed my brain. I have taken this paste almost every day of my life."
He continued explaining that Ganesha is a Hindu deity with an elephant's head, and as we know, elephants have legendary memories. The scientific name of the plant is Bacopa monnieri. It was a local tradition to give this plant to children to help them with their studies, and to the elderly to keep their minds clear, even in old age. Quickly, I told him about my investigation, about my wife's condition, and my desperate search for an answer that Western medicine didn't have. He listened patiently, then reached into his bag and handed me a small cloth bundle. Inside were dried crushed leaves. He held my hands and said,
"I hope this helps your wife, my friend. Please let me know if it does."
We said our goodbyes and I returned to my hotel room where I spent hours researching everything I could about the plant. Study after study confirmed what Vishva had said. Under certain conditions, the extract of this plant had the potential to stimulate neurogenesis, the formation of new neurons and synapses in the brain. Back in the US, I spoke with my wife and added both Bacopa monnieri and olive leaf to her daily routine. Every morning, I prepared a simple tonic, mixing a dose of Bacopa extract into a concentrated teaspoon of olive leaf. The leaf to eliminate the inflammation in the trigeminal nerve, and the plant to help rebuild the connections destroyed by the tinnitus. At first, nothing seemed to change. I admit I started to feel like I was back at square one. But around the second week, small miracles began to happen. I started seeing pieces of my wife coming back little by little. That tired, disturbed look gave way to something more serene, more focused. She started sleeping through the night again. But what truly warmed my heart was when I woke up one morning to the sound of the piano in our living room vibrating once more. I couldn't hold back the tears. It was the first time in years that my wife had played a song for me. And it didn't stop there. It wasn't long before our family and close friends started to notice the incredible changes in her. Some even called it a miracle. Others asked what we had done, wanting to know if it could help their own parents and grandparents. After seeing with my own eyes the peace being restored in my family, I knew I had to bring this chance to other people. I swore I would do everything possible to return silence and tranquility to every home facing this same silent battle. I started sharing small batches of my homemade olive leaf and Bacopa formula with my colleagues and friends, people whose parents or grandparents were struggling with incessant ringing. I invested my savings in obtaining the purest compounds directly from their places of origin. And the results? Well, I'll let them speak for themselves.
Look, I couldn't stand that ringing anymore. People at home and at work thought I was rude, that I wasn't paying attention. But then, after taking this stuff for a week or two, suddenly, silence. For the first time in years, the noise stopped. I couldn't even remember how good it felt to have some peace.
Before this, my life was hell. I had to sleep with a fan on full blast, otherwise the ringing wouldn't leave me alone. I was getting really depressed. Now, I can't believe it. I can sleep in silence, and what's more, I went to see my son play with his band. A small thing for many, right? But for me, it was everything. I felt free again.
Hearing these stories filled me with joy and certainty. I had found my purpose. As a scientist, I knew I needed to take the next step to validate this solution on a much larger scale with rigorous scientific backing. With the help of my colleagues from Emory and the Harvard community, we organized a clinical study with about 2,100 volunteers, men and women between the ages of 45 and 90. They ranged from those experiencing only mild, sporadic ringing to people living with chronic, disabling tinnitus, accompanied by insomnia, anxiety, and memory lapses. They were volunteers from all backgrounds, lifestyles, professions, and genetic histories, but they all shared one thing in common: a desperate desire to live with silence again. After just 16 weeks of treatment using the mixture of these two ingredients, the results were simply astounding. We saw that cadmium chloride, the same toxic metal that inflamed the trigeminal nerve and fed that incessant noise, was being eliminated from the body. Even more impressive, the chronic inflammation that tortured the trigeminal nerve simply plummeted. It was as if someone had taken their hand off the emergency button. The circuits between the brain and the ear returned to working in peace. And with that, 98% of participants saw their tinnitus diminish until it disappeared. A silence so rare it seemed impossible. Suddenly, focus, mental clarity, and a deep calm became part of their daily lives again. That constant knot in the chest, the irritation at any noise, the memory lapses, they practically vanished.
I couldn't stand watching my mom go without sleep, getting more and more irritable and confused. We were considering putting her in a specialized facility, but thanks to Dr. Harrington, I'm no longer afraid to leave my son with her.
And here's the best part. None of the volunteers needed to take additional medications or suffer through painful treatments. None. It was all 100% natural and free of side effects. When I saw those results, I could hardly believe it. We had undeniable scientific proof that this formula worked. But what I didn't expect was the disappointment that followed. What I'm about to tell you is shocking. As a doctor, professor, and speaker specializing in scientific outreach and education, I had the chance to present these findings to the president of one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies. But what happened next left me speechless. Instead of being excited, he laughed at me. Luckily, I recorded part of our conversation.
We're not the least bit interested in one plant mixed with another herb. Why would anyone buy it if it's natural? And even if they did, it would be too cheap. We could never patent it. We'd go bankrupt. So do me a favor. We're offering you $30 million for everything. Your research, your suppliers, the whole package. In return, you sign an NDA and never speak of this again.
That day, I felt like I'd been stabbed in the back. All I could think was, how can people be so corrupt? Of course, I refused the offer. I know how this industry works. As soon as they got their hands on my formula, they would engineer a product that didn't work long-term. Big Pharma's drugs are designed to keep people dependent, just enough to ensure constant profits. It's all part of a gigantic system that feeds on our pain. To give you an idea, in 2022 alone, the global industry for tinnitus and hearing disorder drugs and therapies moved over $10.2 billion. A chronic patient can easily spend between $30,000 and $50,000 over their lifetime on drugs, devices, and treatments that, most of the time, offer no real relief. And that's precisely the point. The longer the noise persists in your head, the more this industry fattens its profits. Now imagine having access to a solution that is affordable, natural, and free of side effects. That's exactly why they want to hide this information. I'm taking a great risk by sharing this with you. The threats I've received are very real. My Instagram account has already been taken down 4 times because of this, but this is my mission, to bring you the whole truth. So please listen carefully, because this next part is the most important of this entire video. After that meeting, along with other researchers from Harvard, Yale, and Emory, we expanded our tests even further, this time including volunteers as young as 28. And the results were clear. This was the most effective solution we had ever seen for restoring auditory health, brain health, and mental peace. We spent almost a whole year reviewing studies and refining our process. We imported wild olive leaves directly from the mountains of Crete. We partnered with small-scale Bacopa monnieri growers in rural India. But the research was not without its challenges. The first major problem is that the pure versions of these nutrients are rare and expensive. Sure, you can find generic Bacopa capsules or olive leaf tea online, but the efficacy lies in the purity and the exact combination of the active compounds. And that only happens when all the conditions are perfect. Temperature, altitude, soil nutrients. When exposed to excessive heat or humidity outside its original habitat, the olive leaf loses most of its oleuropein, and Bacopa oxidizes easily, becoming unstable upon prolonged contact with air. So I started looking for labs, asking them to produce small batches using only the purest and most concentrated forms of these ingredients. Most of them flatly refused, citing conflicts of interest. But the truth is, many were involved in that same corrupt system I mentioned earlier. Fortunately, fate put a businessman in my path who carried a wound very similar to mine. His grandmother also suffered from tinnitus, but unlike my wife, she never had access to a real solution. What happened was devastating. The constant ringing not only stole her peace, but it opened the door to something even crueler: dementia. So, when he heard my story, he wasn't just moved, he made a vow. He said he would not allow other families to go through the same pain. And he committed himself, body and soul, to helping me bring this formula to life. And so today, I can proudly say, if you are struggling with any stage of tinnitus, or if you're worried that the occasional ringing is becoming more frequent, or even developing into severe neurological damage, those fears end today. From this moment on, your only concern will be choosing how to enjoy the silence, which songs you want to rediscover, which conversations you want to have without distractions, which moments you will enjoy with a quiet mind, and the best part, the certainty that your brain will stay young and sharp. After months of hard work and difficult negotiations, we are now producing small batches through a top-tier pharmaceutical lab and a GMP-certified manufacturing facility right here in the United States. We spent countless hours fine-tuning this formula to perfection, and that's what has made this video possible today. It is with great pride and joy that I introduce you to NeuroSilence, the only 100% natural, scientifically backed, and FDA-certified solution that combines these two rare and pure ingredients in the exact proportions needed to eliminate the cadmium buildup that inflames the trigeminal nerve, reduce the cascade of inflammatory molecules, restore the stability of the auditory system, and bring back the silence your brain has forgotten how to feel, all with zero side effects. I want you to be our next success story, the next person to completely silence the ringing, reclaim your peace of mind, your nights of sleep, and your life. Starting today, the choice is yours. Unlike expensive, risky, or symptom-masking conventional treatments, using NeuroSilence is simple. Just take one capsule in the morning with a glass of water, and the formula begins to work inside your body. Now, why in capsules? Because, as proven by researchers at Oxford, encapsulation significantly increases nutrient absorption and delivers the ideal concentration exactly where it's needed most. By putting high-purity olive leaf extract and premium Bacopa monnieri in capsule form, we ensure the active compounds arrive intact in the gut and bloodstream, and then cross the blood-brain barrier to reach the trigeminal nerve and the auditory areas of the brain. In other words, all the power of the formula goes exactly where it needs to go. Encapsulation also allows us to use ultra-concentrated doses, preserving each ingredient at its maximum potential. And that's what makes this solution so powerful. It works for anyone because it attacks the root cause of tinnitus, nerve inflammation caused by the toxic buildup of cadmium on the trigeminal nerve. In our lab tests, the average 16-week period was reduced to 6 weeks due to the purity of the encapsulated ingredients, representing an increase of over 150% in the response rate. It doesn't matter if you're 40 or 80. Whether you're just starting to notice a slight ringing or if the sound is already constant and suffocating, NeuroSilence goes straight to the source, cleansing and rejuvenating your auditory system from the inside out. My team and I were determined to make this formula accessible to finally break the cycle that keeps so many families trapped in suffering and false solutions. We fought against huge interest to get to this point. And now, thanks to our partnership with a certified lab, we can produce NeuroSilence and offer it directly to you and everyone who truly needs it.
What was killing me most wasn't even the noise. It was the shame. I could see the worry on my wife's and kids' faces. I felt like a burden. Thank God that's changed. I got a second chance. Now, I sleep peacefully all night with no noise at all.
It was even getting hard to live, you know. My head wouldn't stop with that noise. It was driving me crazy. I started taking NeuroSilence, and the constant ringing that haunted me is gone. It's not just about the noise, it's about getting my peace back.
And they're not alone. More than 14,000 men and women around the world are already reclaiming their silence and reversing the signs of tinnitus. And you will be next, because we have reserved the next 79 bottles of NeuroSilence for the people who are ready to take that first step today. After the launch of our first batch, demand exploded. The news spread quickly, our current stock is almost depleted, and because of the incredible results and growing buzz, NeuroSilence has even caught the media's attention. Some celebrities have shared their results on social media. Young professionals are now using it too, not just to get rid of tinnitus, but to increase focus, productivity, and improve sleep. But before we continue, I need to warn you, most people buy several bottles at once, so we don't know how long our current supply will last. And at this rate, it's likely to sell out in just a few hours. Right now, there are only 79 bottles left. You need to act fast if you want to reserve your order today and avoid waiting several more months. You see, NeuroSilence is produced in small batches every 6 months to ensure it meets the highest standards of quality and purity. So if you want to live in silence again, sleep deeply, and eliminate that constant sound that drains your energy, you are in exactly the right place. NeuroSilence is the only formula on the market today that offers this kind of transformation with zero side effects. And this transformation is finally within your reach because it contains everything you need to win the battle against tinnitus once and for all. It doesn't matter if you've already tried hearing aids, generic supplements, sound therapies, or expensive medications. I'm here to tell you, nothing is as effective as NeuroSilence. It doesn't matter your age, diet, or family history. What would it be worth to you to have absolute silence for the rest of your life? To never again sleep with noise, to never again wake up with that ringing that follows you all day. For me, seeing what happened to my wife, there is no price you can put on regaining that peace. So, I ask you to think about the real cost of not acting. On one hand, the path you already know, a cycle of expense and frustration. Fortunes spent on useless medications and devices that only mask the noise, or even over $4,000 on neuromodulators that, for many, only make the tinnitus worse. And of course, the cost that no money can buy, seeing the love in your family's eyes slowly replaced by exhaustion, by the sadness of watching you fade away. You don't calculate that. You feel it every single day. On the other hand, the decision that over 14,000 people have made to attack the root cause and solve the problem once and for all. But understand this, NeuroSilence is a treatment, not a one-day miracle. Our data is clear: to reduce the inflammation in your trigeminal nerve and begin restoring your neural circuits. The minimum recommended protocol is 90 days, 3 bottles. However, the complete shield, the one that restores peace and protects against future spikes, the same one our most successful patients used, is the 180-day protocol, 6 bottles. Stopping before then is like putting out a fire halfway. You need to go all the way to ensure the flame doesn't reignite. Considering this, the fair price for NeuroSilence would be $299 per bottle. But today, your decision to make it this far will be rewarded. We received a large investment from a much-loved Hollywood figure who saw a family member suffer from a devastating cognitive decline caused by tinnitus. This person, who was asked to remain anonymous, made a contribution that allowed us to crush intermediary costs. And we decided to pass all those savings directly onto you. That means that in this exclusive batch, the final price of NeuroSilence is not $299, but only $98 per bottle. But for me, that still wasn't accessible enough to reach everyone who suffers. You see, I don't just see this as a healthcare professional, I see it as a Christian man who was given a second chance. These ingredients were a gift from God that restored peace in my family, and I feel it is my sacred mission to do the same for yours. That's why I've made a decision. I am going to personally pay for half of your complete treatment. If you're still here, it's because you need a real way out. And I tell you with all the certainty in my heart, there is nothing more powerful and effective than NeuroSilence. Let me show you exactly how this gift will work for you. Today, the 6-bottle kit, which corresponds to the complete 180-day treatment, would cost $588. However, the first 50 who choose it now will pay half, only $294. You can choose it right below, right now. If the price shown is $294, it means you are still among the first, and there's still time. I've asked that they limit it to 1 kit per purchase, but if it shows $588, it's because the promotional kits have already run out. Choose your complete kit below right now, and reclaim your peace and your silence once and for all. This price will never be offered again. It's a unique opportunity and guarantees the complete, uninterrupted treatment for you for half the price. Don't waste time. Now, you might also just want to turn down the volume of the ringing a bit and not do the full treatment. In that case, you can start with the 3-bottle kit of NeuroSilence, which covers the minimum recommended 90-day treatment. You'll get over 25% off, and instead of paying the original price of $294, you'll pay only $217. The 3-bottle kit isn't as complete a protection as the 6-bottle kit, but it's still a powerful option for those with more recent or intermittent tinnitus. And regardless of the kit you choose, you have a 90-day full money-back guarantee. That means if you don't feel the infernal ringing drastically decrease or silence return to your life, just send an email to the address on the NeuroSilence bottle, and we will refund 100% of your money immediately, no questions asked. Remember, these special conditions are being offered only today while our limited supplies for this batch last. Our purpose is to end the torture of tinnitus in America, and that's why we've removed any profit from the product and cut out middlemen just to present the best price for you right here and now. And once the bottles run out, the purchase buttons on this page will be disabled until we can produce a new batch, which, due to the rarity of the Bacopa monnieri species we use and the complexity of our encapsulation technology, takes at least 6 months. And to be completely transparent, given the number of people on the waiting list, it's very likely that the next batches will be prioritized for those already in treatment. That's why, to encourage you to make the best decision for your peace today, if you are one of the first 50 to secure the 6-bottle package of NeuroSilence, you will not pay the shipping fee. And yes, your order today is a one-time payment with no auto subscriptions or hidden charges. We hate that as much as you do. For less than $3 a day, you'll have access to the most revolutionary brain formula on the market, cheaper than a cup of coffee and much cheaper than long-term care in a nursing home. Here's exactly what you need to do to complete your order securely. Just below this video, you'll see the NeuroSilence kit options. Once you click, you'll be redirected to our 100% secure checkout page. This page is managed by Cart Panda, one of the largest and most trusted online payment processors in the world, which uses the same encryption and security system as major international banks. Your information is completely protected. Now, to complete your order, just follow these simple steps. Scroll down the page. The first step is to fill in your full name, phone number, and email. The second step is to fill in the fields with the address where you want to receive your NeuroSilence kit. And finally, the last step is to enter your payment information. Just click Buy Now and you're done. Our team here in the United States will immediately prepare your shipment, and you'll receive it at your door in 3 to 5 business days within the US. You'll receive an email shortly after with all the details. And to celebrate the recent seal of efficacy awarded to NeuroSilence by the FDA, I've decided to hold a drawing for a grand prize. 8 patients will be randomly selected for an all-expenses-paid trip to Tuscany, Italy, with the right to bring 3 guests in February 2026. Keep an eye on your email inbox as the drawing will take place on November 20th. You'll stay at a 5-star, all-inclusive resort and have the time of your life, creating beautiful new memories with the people you love most. But please remember, there are only a few bottles left in stock, and with so many people ordering 3, 6, even 12 bottles at a time, this offer could be gone in an hour. As soon as the stock runs out, the purchase buttons below this video will be disabled, so select your preferred kit below right now. If you live in the US, you will receive your order within 3 to 5 business days, depending on your location. If you are abroad, it may take a little longer, but never more than 15 days. And if you have any questions, our support team is available 24/7 by email or phone, ready to help you at any time. Important note, NeuroSilence is only available through this official page. You will not find it anywhere else. NeuroSilence is not available on Amazon, eBay, GNC, or Walgreens. We have removed all intermediaries so we can offer the best possible price directly here on our official website. And since you've stayed with me this far, your bottles are reserved. But if you close this page, they will be released to the next person in line. So click the button below right now to secure your discount and your order. And listen, although we've received hundreds of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, I completely understand if you're still skeptical. After all, Big Pharma has been lying to you for decades, telling you that tinnitus has no cure. They don't want you to discover something simple, natural, and affordable, because then you wouldn't keep spending a fortune on the false solutions they push year after year. It's no surprise they spend over $179 million a year just to keep people like you from knowing the truth. So, to prove that our solution works and that you have absolutely nothing to worry about, you are covered by our 90-day no questions asked money-back guarantee. If for any reason you are not completely satisfied with NeuroSilence, which has never happened so far, just send us an email and we will refund 100% of your money. No questions, no hassle. As I said, your investment is 100% safe. You don't have to say yes right now. All I'm asking for is a maybe. You have a full 90 days to decide, but it's likely you'll start noticing the results in the very first week and realize it was one of the best decisions you've ever made. And why am I doing this? Because, unlike the big pharmaceutical companies, I believe in what we've created. I know it works. So your risk is zero and your potential gain is transformative. So click the button below before it's too late.
You know that fuzzy feeling you get in your brain from the constant ringing? That started to go away pretty quick after I tried NeuroSilence. It's wild because the doctor told me my case was severe and there was nothing to be done. Now I feel like I have my brain back. Honestly, I have a kind of peace and clarity now that I don't think I've had since my 30s.
Now, I want you to imagine yourself just 1 month from now with a peace and a silence you thought you'd never have again. Imagine living unforgettable moments with the people you love most, knowing that the conversation won't be interrupted by a whistle or a hiss. What is it worth to be truly present again, with your attention and clarity intact, to live without that constant fear that the noise will never stop? I would say it's priceless. And today, that is within your reach, but you need to act fast. With every minute that passes, your trigeminal nerve could be under the attack of this debilitating inflammation. And while you're thinking, others are securing their kits. Our stock is limited and could run out at any moment. Let's face it, there's no reason to procrastinate and risk the regret of missing this chance. Remember, tinnitus doesn't wait. The neurological damage doesn't take a break. The only person who can act is you. Imagine in a few weeks, you or your loved one listening to your favorite music clearly, without the ringing over it, waking up in a silent room feeling peace instead of panic. That's what NeuroSilence can do. So go ahead and secure your package now. Do it while we still have bottles available. And before this presentation is taken down due to pressure from the pharmaceutical giants, this is the moment to act. And from here, you have only two choices. Option 1, you close this page, pretend you didn't see it, and go back to life as usual. You ignore the research, the discoveries, the testimonials, and continue to believe that the ringing, the difficulty hearing, and the social disconnection are just a part of life. But if you've come this far, I know that's not what you want. Deep down, you know something has to change. You feel you deserve more. Option 2, and the one I truly hope you'll choose, is to say yes to life. Yes to freedom from the noise. Yes to a future where silence is a gift, not a torture. With just one click, you can begin your journey back to tranquility, back to your conversations, back to yourself. And here's the best part. You can do all of this without harsh drugs, without expensive treatments, and without side effects. With NeuroSilence, you take a real, safe, and scientifically backed step toward a calmer mind, a clearer ear, and a more present life. So ask yourself, what changes if you let this moment pass? How much longer will you live with this fear that the sound will never stop? What is the cost to your family to see you pulling away, unable to connect? The science has already shown there is a way out, and that way out is right in front of you. Choose your NeuroSilence kit below, the only 100% natural, safe, and proven formula designed to attack tinnitus and auditory inflammation at the root. And remember, you are fully protected by our unconditional guarantee. You have time to try it. No risk, no pressure, full support. But time is running out. The bottles are disappearing fast, and you deserve this transformation. Make the decision your future self will thank you for. Click the button now and come celebrate your victory with us. The victory of a peaceful mind and a new life filled with the sounds you choose to hear. I can't wait to hear your story of transformation. Thank you for listening. Until next time.